Imagine a city divided overnight, families torn apart, and freedom curtailed. This was Berlin in 1961. The Berlin Wall, an infamous symbol of the Cold War, was born out of a time fraught with political tension and fear. Following the end of World War II, Germany was divided into 4 zones, each controlled by one of the victorious allies: the United States, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. Berlin, the capital, languished in the Soviet-controlled East Germany, but it too was divided among the Allies. The early years of the 1960s saw a rise in Cold War tensions between the democratic West and communist East. East Germany, under Soviet influence, was struggling economically and politically. Its citizens were fleeing to the West in droves, seeking better opportunities. This mass exodus threatened the very stability of the East German regime. In response, on the 13th of August 1961, the East German government did the unthinkable. They ordered the construction of a wall to stem the tide of defectors. Almost overnight, a barbed wire fence sprang up, dividing the city of Berlin into 2 halves. This temporary fence soon gave way to a solid wall, standing at 12 feet high and stretching over 100 miles. Families found themselves torn apart, unable to cross this new insurmountable barrier. East Berliners were now prisoners in their own city, their basic right to freedom of movement brutally curtailed. The Berlin Wall stood as a stark symbol of the ideological divide of the time, a physical manifestation of Winston Churchill's metaphorical Iron Curtain. In the blink of an eye, Berlin was split into 2, marking the beginning of a painful era. This was the birth of the Berlin Wall, a monumental event that set the stage for a significant chapter in world history. The wall would stand for the next 28 years, its shadow looming over the city, a constant reminder of a world divided. But as we'll see, walls, no matter how formidable, cannot contain the human spirit forever. Behind the Iron Curtain of the Berlin Wall, life took a different shape. This imposing structure of concrete and barbed wire didn't just separate East from West, it was a tangible divide between 2 starkly contrasting worlds. On the western side, life was marked by capitalism's dynamism. The streets buzzed with the energy of a society relishing in economic prosperity and personal freedoms. The vibrant culture of West Berlin thrived, pulsating with music, art, and a bustling nightlife that earned the city the nickname Island of Freedom. But the story was starkly different on the other side of the wall. East Berlin, under the grip of a socialist regime, was a world of uniformity and strict control. The state's watchful eye was everywhere, and the Stasi, East Germany's secret police, was notorious for its extensive surveillance. Personal freedoms were curtailed and dissent was met with harsh consequences. Yet, amidst the hardship, a sense of community and resilience emerged. East Berliners found solace in each other, creating a vibrant, albeit muted, cultural scene. They found ways to express themselves, whether through underground music, art, or literature, often walking a fine line between creativity and state-approved content. But the human spirit yearns for freedom, and the wall became a symbol of oppression that many sought to overcome. Over the years, there were numerous escape attempts. Some were successful, but many ended in tragedy. Each attempt was a testament to the indomitable spirit of those yearning for liberty, a poignant reminder of the human cost of the divide. One such story is of Peter Fechter, a young man of just 18 who was shot while trying to cross the wall. His agonizing death in full view of the world echoed the harsh reality of the wall's existence. Yet, it was just one of the many stories of courage and desperation that unfolded in the shadow of the wall. And then there were the tunnelers, brave souls who dug under the wall, risking their lives for a chance at freedom. These subterranean escape routes, often cramped and dangerous, were a silent testament to the human will to break free from constraints. Meanwhile, the wall continued to stand, its grim face a stark reminder of a divided world. It was more than just a physical barrier, it was a symbol of a city torn apart, a manifestation of ideological differences, and a chilling testament to the extremes of human division. Yet, even in the shadow of the wall, life went on. People adapted, resisted, and hoped their lives a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. The wall might have divided a city and a world, but it could not quell the human yearning for freedom and unity. The wall stood as an oppressive symbol, a stark reminder of a city and a world divided. But within its dark shadow, stories of resilience, courage, and the human spirit continued to unfold, waiting for the day when the wall would crumble, giving way to a new dawn of freedom and unity. As time passed, the winds of change began to blow. East Germany, like much of the Eastern Bloc, was starting to feel the pressure of its own people's desire for freedom. The iron fist of the state could not suppress the growing dissent forever. Throughout the 1980s, a series of social and political shifts began to disrupt the status quo. The economy was struggling and the government's promises of prosperity and equality seemed increasingly hollow. Discontent was brewing, and the citizens of East Germany were beginning to voice their dissatisfaction. It started subtly. Quiet murmurs of discontent transformed into hushed conversations, which gradually grew into whispered dissent. These whispers turned into words into shouts, and shouts into protests. The people were no longer afraid to voice their concerns. They demanded more than the state-controlled life they had been forced to accept. They wanted freedom, they wanted rights, and above all, they wanted change. In the autumn of 1989, this dissent reached a boiling point. The peaceful protests that had been slowly gathering momentum suddenly exploded into mass demonstrations. Leipzig, Dresden, Berlin, cities across East Germany echoed with the voices of hundreds of thousands of people demanding reform. The regime tried to suppress the movement, but the sheer scale of the protests made it clear that the tide was turning. The people had spoken, and they would not be silenced. The government was forced to listen. These winds of change didn't just blow through the streets of East German cities. They reached the highest echelons of power, shaking the very foundations of the regime. The East German government, once seemingly invincible, was now teetering on the brink of collapse. Change was in the air, and the wall could no longer contain it. November 9, 1989, a date forever etched in history. The world held its breath as the unthinkable happened. The Berlin Wall, an enduring symbol of Cold War division, was about to crumble. The day had begun like any other, but by nightfall it would be transformed into a turning point for Germany, Europe, and indeed, the world. Earlier that day, an East German government official had made an unprepared statement at a press conference. He announced that East Germans would be allowed to cross the border, effective immediately. The news spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the city and beyond. It was a statement that had been long awaited, but its sudden delivery left people in disbelief. As the news sank in, East and West Berliners alike flocked to the wall. What had been a symbol of division and despair became a beacon, drawing people in like moths to a flame. The atmosphere was electric, charged with a mix of disbelief, excitement, and a profound sense of change. It was a spontaneous gathering, with people arriving in droves, their faces lit up in the glow of a moment that was bigger than themselves. At first, the border guards were flummoxed. They had received no official orders regarding the sudden change, and they were vastly outnumbered by the swelling crowd. But as the night wore on, the guards stepped aside, their rifles lowered, their faces mirroring the astonishment etched on every face in the crowd. The people surged forward, laughter and cries of joy punctuating the crisp November air. And then, the first cracks appeared. Hammers and chisels were wielded by hands eager to dismantle the physical embodiment of decades of division. Each blow was not just an assault on concrete and steel. It was a strike against years of separation, against the Cold War mentality that had divided families, friends, and an entire nation. As chunks of the wall tumbled down, people clambered over the once insurmountable barrier, their jubilant cheers echoing through the night. Strangers embraced, tears streaming down their faces as they celebrated a freedom that had been denied for too long. The world watched in awe as the once formidable Berlin Wall was reduced to rubble, its fall echoing the collective sigh of relief from a world weary of division. The night the wall fell was a testament to the spirit of the German people and their longing for freedom. It was the night when a wall that had stood as a symbol of division and oppression for 28 long years came crashing down, paving the way for the reunification of Germany and signaling the end of the Cold War. The wall that had divided a city and symbolized a divided world came crashing down. With the fall of the wall, a new chapter in history began. The physical and ideological barrier that had divided East and West families and friends for nearly 3 decades was no more. The jubilation witnessed on that fateful November night was just the beginning of a series of transformative events. The reunification of Germany, which seemed like a distant dream for so many years, was suddenly within grasp. The process was complex, filled with political wrangling and economic challenges, but by October 3, 1990, less than a year after the wall fell, East and West Germany were officially reunited. This was more than just a reunification of a country. It was the mending of a wound that had cut deep into the heart of Europe. But the impact of the wall's fall extended far beyond Germany's borders. It marked a pivotal moment in world history, signaling the end of the Cold War. The bipolar world, divided into the capitalist West and the communist East, was dissolving. The fall of the wall was the first domino to topple in a series of events that led to the disintegration of the Soviet Union 2 years later. This monumental shift in the global balance of power ushered in an era of democratic expansion in Europe. Countries that had been under the yoke of communism began their transitions towards democracy, marking a profound change in the political landscape of the continent. The Berlin Wall, once a symbol of division and oppression, now stands as a relic of history and a testament to the human spirit's desire for freedom and unity. Its fall was not just the end of a dark chapter, but the beginning of a new era. An era that has shaped the world we live in today. It serves as a powerful reminder of the strength of people's desire for freedom and the extraordinary things that can be achieved when that desire is realized.